Wow, Tatsuro Taira proved he might just be the real deal as he made easy work of Hyun-Sung Park. But before I rate that performance, welcome to the channel, guys, and welcome to the series where I rate every single UFC fighter performance on every single UFC card. As mentioned before, we're going to be doing Tatsuro Taira versus Hyun-Sung Park today. But before we start, I just want to go over some of my criteria notes before we get going. So I'm going to be rating pure performance, which is strictly how they performed on the night, regardless of opposition. Secondly, strength of opponent rating. How good is their opponent currently, not in their prime, just how good are they in their current form. Disregard how amazing they were in their past or prime, just current form, not potential, not past, but current. And I'm going to be taking the average of those two to bring their overall performance rating. And that means that a 10 out of 10 would be very hard to achieve. You're going to need two 10s, which you need a perfect performance versus the best of the best opposition. And of course, this is just all my opinion. No disrespect intended to the athletes. If you guys disagree, leave it in the comments. Let's chop it up. Have a fun, respectful conversation, and let's get right into it. We started off the night in the women's strawweight division where Pierre Rodriguez was able to defeat Caitlin Souza via split decision. Honestly, I feel like it should have been a unanimous decision. It was a close fight, but I definitely think that Rodriguez was able to control the fight on the stand-up and as well as getting 7 takedowns on the fight. So honestly, great performance from Rodriguez, 7 out of 10. Solid performance versus a 6 out of 10 opponent in Caitlin Souza. I'd say she's an above average UFC fighter in that division for sure. And that puts Rodriguez at a 6.5 out of 10, where Caitlin Souza 5.75 out of 10. Honestly, a solid rating in a loss and against solid opposition. So no shame in losing to someone as good as Rodriguez. But Rodriguez definitely did enough to get it done, in my opinion. I believe that it shouldn't have been a split decision. But moving on to the next fight, where we had Rafael Estevan defeating Felipe Bunes via unanimous decision. I will note that Estevan did miss weight, so I'm going to put a -1 point for his performance rating. 7 out of 10. He looked great. It was a really dominant performance, but you got to have a minus point for missing weight. I think he's done that like 2 out of his last 3 fights, so maybe it's time to move up to bantamweight for him. But 7 out of 10 pure performance rating against a 4 out of 10 opponent. Bunes is nothing too special. He can always prove me wrong, no offense, but that's going to bring Estevan's overall rating to a 5.5 out of 10 and Bunes at a 4.5 out of 10. He did not have a great performance. 3 out of 10 pure performance rating. Moving on to our first finish of the night, Austin Bashi was able to get John Giannis out of there in the first round via submission with a rear naked choke. Easy 10 out of 10 performance for Bashi against someone who was making their UFC debut, so I'm not too impressed with Giannis, where 2 out of 10 opponent rating for him. I'm sorry, I just can't go any higher. So that's going to bring Bashi to a 6 out of 10 rating overall, which would have been way higher if this performance was against a more proven opponent, but it is what it is. He did about as good as you could in the situation. And as for John Giannis, he did about the opposite, about as worse as you could do in this situation. But at least it was against a solid up-and-comer where Bashi is super young. We've seen him lost to Christian Rodriguez before, but no shame in that. Bashi's a super exciting up-and-comer. 6 out of 10 opponent rating, so that's going to bring up the overall rating to a 3.5 for Giannis. But yeah, man, I'm excited for Bashi in his next fight, man. This kid is good. The finishes kept coming with Andrei Pulev defeating Nick Klein via round 2 TKO. And man, a very, very solid performance from Pulev, able to get Klein out of there with relative ease. I'm going to give him an 8.5 out of 10. Against a 4 out of 10 opponent, Klein is relatively unproven, has not been able to get his first UFC win as of yet. So that's going to bring Pulev to a 6.25 out of 10. And Nick Klein, 2 out of 10 performance rating, getting finished pretty quickly and not putting up too much of a fight. And that's going to bring his overall rating to a 4 out of 10. Moving on to the next fight, we saw Rodolfo Vieira defeating Tresean Gore via unanimous decision in a way I really didn't expect. He was honestly piecing up Gore on the feet. Very impressive performance. It was still somewhat competitive where Gore was able to stuff a lot of the takedowns. Only 1 for 14 for Vieira on the takedown attempts, but I think he was so focused on the takedowns that Vieira was able to get the best of him on the feet. So very good performance from Vieira. 7 out of 10. Was able to get the decision against a 4 out of 10 opponent. Gore, as much as I want him to be a higher rating, I was a big fan of this guy coming in from Tough. He just has not quite lived up to those expectations coming out of Tough. So that's going to bring Rodolfo Vieira to a 5.5 out of 10 overall rating for him. As for Tresean Gore, 3 out of 10 pure performance rating against a 6 out of 10 opponent. Rodolfo Vieira is a tough opponent, tricky on the ground, and showing that his stand-up is evolving as well, which is going to bring him to a 4.5 out of 10 overall rating. Yeah, solid fight, and I really did not expect that from Vieira. If his stand-up is able to keep improving, even though he's up there in age, man, he could become dangerous for anyone. And we are back with another finish with Rinya Nakamura with a TKO over Nathan Fletcher in round number 1 with a nasty liver kick. And it was pretty much over from there. Nakamura is a super exciting prospect, a 10 out of 10 pure performance rating against a 4 out of 10 opponent. We've seen Fletcher have a win in the UFC and almost defeat Caroline Lafrane, but he's now 1-2 in the UFC, so that's why it's not any higher. That's going to bring Nakamura to a 7 out of 10 overall rating. As for Fletcher, a 1 out of 10. But it was against a solid opposition in Nakamura, a really exciting up-and-coming prospect. So no shame in losing to him, but it was in a really devastating way. 4 out of 10 overall for Nathan Fletcher. This next fight was an absolute banger where Kevin Vallejos was able to defeat Danny Silva via unanimous decision. I'm going to have to give him a 7.5 out of 10. He was able to control most of the fight. And despite Silva's best efforts putting on an absolute war, I do think that Vallejos was controlling most of the fight and landing the bigger shots, so that's why he has a much higher rating. 7.5 out of 10 for him against a solid opponent in Danny Silva. We've seen him win and lose, but he always puts up a great fight. So that's going to bring Vallejos up to a 6.25 out of 10 on his overall rating. As for Danny Silva, put up a great fight against a really solid up-and-comer, someone who's only ever lost to another Silva, Gene Silva. But Danny Silva was not able to get it done. 5.5 out of 10 against a very solid up-and-coming prospect who we all have to keep an eye on. In our next fight, Neil Magny was able to turn back the clock and get a round 2 TKO versus Zaleski dos Santos. And man, really fun fight where Magny was able to come back from a little bit of a rough start and get a nasty finish. He looked mean in there. 7.5 pure performance rating for Neil Magny against a 5 out of 10 opponent. It'd probably be higher if this was, a few years back, but that's going to bring Magny to a 6.25 out of 10. As for Dos Santos, a 2 out of 10 pure performance rating. After that quick start, wasn't really able to do anything, and Magny was able to get him out of there. That's going to bring Dos Santos to a 4 out of 10 overall. No shame in losing to Magny. 6 out of 10 opponent. Not as high as it probably once was back in the day. Magny would probably be a 7 or even maybe an 8 out of 10 out of opponent. But now I think 6 out of 10 is fair. So 4 out of 10 for Zaleski dos Santos. And man, Magny always able to be tough in there, man. Right when you think he might be time to retire, he gets a win. So shout out to Neil Magny, man. The two old men put on a crazy show, but Neil Magny showed that he was the better old man of the two. In what was probably the most dominant decision, in my opinion at least, Carol Rosa was able to defeat Nora Corneli via unanimous decision. And man, what a dominant performance from Carol Rosa. 8.5 out of 10 versus a very solid opponent. Nora, I was hyped for. I was expecting this to be a much closer fight. So that's going to put Carol Rosa at a 7.75 out of 10 for her overall rating. As for Nora, 2 out of 10 performance, really disappointing. Just was not on her level on the stand-up, on the grappling at all. So really disappointing performance, but it was against a really solid opponent in Carol Rosa, so no shame in losing to her. But that's going to bring her down to a 4 out of 10 overall rating for that performance. This next fight was an absolute war. one fight of the night, one of two fights at one fight of the night, but the next one we'll get into later. And man, Esteban Ribovic able to defeat Elvis Brenner via unanimous decision. I thought it was closer than some of the judges did, but I definitely agree with the winner. 8 out of 10, pure performance for Esteban Ribovic. And man, his toughness is insane. Always coming forward, always swinging hard. And if it wasn't for Elvis Brenner being kind of an up and down fighter, not exactly proven lately, he's now lost 3 in a row, 5 out of 10 opponent, which puts Ribovic at a 6.5 out of 10 overall. It would have been higher if Brenner was a little bit of a better opponent. No offense to Brenner. Brenner himself put on a great performance, especially in the loss. 6.5 out of 10 in the loss, very, very high. Against a solid opponent in Ribovic, 6 out of 10 opponent, which brings Brenner to a 6.25 out of 10, very high for a loss. I was really impressed with him. His toughness, his determination, never gave up, and yeah, both these guys definitely deserve the 50K bonus. What a fight, dude. Our next fight also one fight of the night, so it was back-to-back absolute wars. Chris Duncan was able to defeat Mateusz Rebecki via unanimous decision. Man, both these guys left it all in the ring. They were both cut up, all nasty. Rebecki's face was barely recognizable. Duncan was cut up all over. I'm going to give Duncan an 8 out of 10 for that pure performance rating against a very solid Mateusz Rebecki, 7 out of 10 opponent. Very dangerous. No one wants to be in there with that dude. He's just a marauder. And that's going to bring Duncan to a 7.5 out of 10. Very solid in that win against solid opponent. Very solid rating. As for Rebecki, very good for, especially for a loss. I'm going to give him a 7.5 out of 10. He really left it all on the line. I thought maybe it could have gone either way. It was a unanimous decision, but I wouldn't have been mad if it went either way because it was just that entertaining of a fight. So that's going to bring his overall rating to a 7.25 out of 10. Extremely high for a loss, so I was super high on both these guys. But Duncan is, of course, going to have the higher rating due to the win. And, man, no shame in either of those performances. I'm glad they both got paid. And in our main event, Tatsuro Taira barely got touched, if he got touched at all. Absolute dominant performance. Was able to get the round 2 submission with the face crank. And yeah, even though it was in the second round, I'm still giving it a 10 out of 10 performance. He was not even touched. Against a very solid up-and-comer in Hyun-Sung Park, 7 out of 10 opponent. 10 out of 10 pure performance rating. That's going to bring Tatsuro Taira to an 8.5 out of 10. I believe our highest rating. And Hyun-Sung Park, not a great performance, man. This is a big opportunity for him getting the late replacement against a very, very highly ranked prospect. And he was just not able to rise to the occasion, unfortunately. 1 out of 10 for that pure performance rating against a very good opponent in Tatsuro Taira. 8 out of 10 opponent. But because of that one, that's going to bring that overall rating down to a 4.5 out of 10. Not a great rating. And I was expecting this fight to be close, but I expected Taira to win. But man, it was not close at all. Taira showed that there's levels to this. And I'm excited for Taira's next fight. Before I let you guys go, here are all of the ratings laid out ranked, with Taira being the highest overall rating with an 8.5 out of 10, and Rebecki being the highest rated loser with a 7.25 out of 10. Here are the rest of the ratings, with the lowest being John Giannis with a 3.5 out of 10. And with all those laid out, that is going to do it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. These do take me a while to put together, so thank you guys so much for the support. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with the ratings down below. And I'll be right back here next week rating Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, that whole card. So it's going to be fun. So make sure to stay safe until that next one, and I'll see you guys there.